Commander Gina stared at the giant screen in front of her. Red lights flashed all around the moon-base control room. On the big display, little dots that showed human colonies were going dark one by one. Each dot was a whole world full of people. "New Sol is gone," someone called out. Then another voice said, "Terra Nova just went silent." Then Haven Prime is not responding. Gina felt sick. These were not just dots on a screen. These were billions of people living their lives. Working, raising families, dreaming of the future. Now they were all dead. Lieutenant Parkdeho ran up to her. His face was white with fear. "Ma'am, we are getting one last message from Kepler Station." The speakers made a loud crackling sound. Then they could hear people screaming in the background. A man's voice came through, but it was hard to understand because of all the noise. "They are everywhere. The alien ships are huge. They are not taking anyone prisoner. They're killing everyone. Tell Earth that we tried to fight, but we could not stop them. Tell everyone that we then nothing." Just silence. Gina's hands were shaking. She held on to the metal rail in front of her to keep steady. 47 human worlds. 23 billion people. All dead in just 3 days. The aliens called themselves the Vorthok Dominion. They had given humanity a choice weeks ago. Submit to their rule or die. The humans had said no. The Vorthok thought humans were too wild and unpredictable. They wanted all species in the galaxy to follow their strict rules. When humanity refused, the aliens decided to wipe them out completely. Commander, Chief Engineer Kim Minho whispered, "Our sensors are picking up huge energy readings." "Are coming here next?" Gina looked out the thick glass windows. In the distance, she could see the first alien ships appearing out of nowhere. They came out of hyperspace like giant monsters emerging from the deep ocean. The ships were massive, bigger than entire cities. They had a sick green glow and were covered with weapons that could destroy planets. These were Vorthok dreadnoughts. Each one could carry millions of alien soldiers. They had biomechanical hulls that could repair themselves. No human weapon had ever scratched them. "Start Protocol Shepard right now," Gina ordered. Her voice was steady even though her heart was racing. "Tell all civilian ships to leave immediately. They must scatter in different directions. No planned routes. No talking to each other after they leave." Park looked shocked. "Ma'am, that means we are giving up on Earth." Gina watched as the orbital defense platforms around Earth started exploding. They looked like small stars dying in the darkness. Human weapons were useless against the alien ships. "Earth is already finished," she said sadly. "But humanity is not finished yet. We will hide in the empty space between stars. We will learn to survive. We will grow stronger. One day, we will come back to make them pay for what they did to us." The moon base started shaking as alien weapons hit it. Dust fell from the ceiling. The lights flickered on and off. Distance. Earth's blue surface was starting to glow with fires as the aliens attacked the planet. Gina thought about her daughter who was on one of the escape ships. She thought about all the children who would grow up without home planets. They would be orphans, raised in the cold darkness of space. But maybe that would make them stronger. Maybe that would make them more dangerous. "All ships, this is Commander." Gina, she spoke into her communicator. "You are now the last hope of humanity. Do not try to be heroes. Do not fight battles you cannot win. Hide, learn, survive. Remember what they did to us. Remember the 23 billion who died today. And when you are ready, when you are strong enough, come back and show them what happens when you try to. Make humans extinct." The last few thousand humans climbed into their ships. They were mostly old cargo vessels and small fighters. There's nothing that could fight the alien dreadnoughts. They flew away from Earth in all directions, disappearing into the vast emptiness between the stars. As the moon base was destroyed around her, Gina smiled grimly. The aliens thought they had won. They thought humanity was finished. They had made a mistake. It left survivors. And those survivors carried something more dangerous than any weapon. They carried the memory of what had been taken from them. The Vorthok had made humans into orphans. But orphans had nothing left to lose, and that made them the most dangerous. Enemies of all. In the cold darkness of space, scattered across the galaxy, the last humans began their long journey. They would hide, they would learn, they would grow strong, and someday they would return to teach the aliens a simple lesson. Never try to make humanity extinct, because humans always find a way to survive. The war was over. Humanity had lost. But the real war was just beginning. Captain Choi Mina floated silently in the darkness between the asteroids. This cold, empty place had been her home for her entire life. She was born here 53 years after the aliens destroyed Earth and all the human worlds. The hidden base was carved deep inside. Asteroid X-47. It looked nothing like the green, warm Earth that her parents used to tell her about in bedtime stories. Here, everything was metal and rock and recycled air. But this harsh place had made humans into something new and dangerous. "I can see the target," Mina whispered into her communication device. An alien patrol ship was moving slowly past their hiding spot. The ship was huge and covered with green lights, just like the ones that had destroyed her people's world so long ago, but Mina was not the same kind of human that the aliens had killed. Her eyes had been changed through years of genetic modification. She could see perfectly in the almost complete darkness of space. Her lungs had been redesigned to work better with recycled air. She barely needed to breathe. Lieutenant Kong Jisoo floated next to her. His body temperature was much lower than a normal human's. This helped him hide from the alien sensors. Like all humans born in the void of space, he could survive in the vacuum without a spacesuit for 30 minutes. "Their scanning pattern is exactly what we expected," Jisoo said quietly. "They still think we are all dead." The aliens called Vorthok had become lazy over the years. Their attack on humanity 53 years ago had been so complete that they stopped looking for human survivors decades ago. They never imagined that the scattered refugees had spent half a century studying them, learning their weaknesses and preparing for revenge. The Vorthok thought they were the perfect hunters. They believed they had wiped out every last human. But they had made one big mistake. They had left some humans alive. And those humans had children. And those children grew up in the cold emptiness of space, becoming something the aliens could never imagine. Dr. Yoon Ha-jin's voice came through their brain implants from the research station, hidden deeper in the asteroid field. "The biological weapon is ready to use. It will attack only their breathing systems. Will not hurt any other species, but it will kill the Vorthok within hours." Mina smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had waited her whole life for this moment. The orphaned children of humanity had learned patience from the void itself. They had watched the aliens for decades. They had studied every ship, every weapon, every weakness. The humans who survived the Great Killing had scattered across the galaxy like seeds in the wind. They hid in asteroid fields, in the space between stars, in places so cold and empty that no one else wanted to go there. But humans learned to live there. More than that, they learned to thrive there. Mina remembered the stories the older survivors told. They spoke of green grass and blue skies, of cities full of millions of people, of children playing in parks under a warm sun. All of that was gone now. The Vorthok had burned it all. But the children born in the void did not mourn for things they had never seen. Instead, they grew up hard and cold and patient, like the space around them. They learned to survive on almost nothing. They learned to hide so well that even the best alien sensors could not find them. "The patrol ship is moving away," Jisoo reported. "We are clear to begin." For 50 years, the scattered humans had been preparing. They had studied Vorthok technology, capturing small pieces from wrecked ships. They had learned the alien language by listening to their communications. They had mapped every patrol route, every supply line, every weakness in the alien empire. The Vorthok had made humanity into orphans. But orphans learned to be survivors. Survivors learned to be hunters. "All teams, this is Captain Mina." She broadcast on the secret human communication network that stretched across the galaxy. "Begin Phase 1. It is time to remind the galaxy that humanity does not stay dead." Across dozens of star systems, hidden human teams began to move. They had been waiting for this signal for their entire lives. Some had been born on generation ships that traveled between the stars. Others grew up in hidden bases carved into asteroids or moons. All of them had one thing in common. They were the children of the void, and they had come to collect a debt. Vorthok patrol ship continued on its route, unaware that death was following behind it. The aliens thought they were the masters of the galaxy. They thought they had eliminated the chaotic, unpredictable humans forever. They were about to learn how wrong they were. In the cold darkness between the stars, humanity's orphaned children, prepared to teach their enemies a lesson that would echo across the galaxy. The Vorthok had tried to make humans extinct. Now it was humanity's turn to return the favor. The real war was finally beginning. The Vorthok colony world, called Nexus Prime, had never had any problems with its systems. For 300 years, everything had worked perfectly. The aliens used living machines that could fix themselves. Nothing ever broke down. Nothing ever went wrong. That changed on a quiet Tuesday morning when the machines that made breathable air started making poison gas instead. Colonial Administrator Vorthkas stared at his control screens in shock. Red warning lights were flashing everywhere. Alarms were screaming. His command center was filling up with emergency messages. "This cannot be happening," he said in his alien language, his voice making a hissing sound. "Living machines fix themselves automatically. They never break down. This is impossible," but it was happening. All across the planet, the air-making machines were producing toxic gas that burned the lungs of anyone who breathed it. Vorthok colonists were running for their emergency shelters, gasping and choking. What Vorthkas did not know was that Dr. Song Minji was watching from inside the maintenance tunnels beneath his building. She had been hiding there for weeks, studying the alien biomachines. Her body had been changed by human scientists so she could survive in poisonous air that would kill a normal person. The Vorthok thought their living technology was their greatest strength. Their machines were part plant, part animal, part computer, could grow and heal and adapt. But Song Minji had discovered something the aliens never considered. Living things could get sick. Meanwhile, on the mining world of Kara's 7, engineer, Nam Jinwoo watched from his hiding place as the main power reactor started having problems. The containment field that kept the nuclear fusion reaction stable was flickering on and off like a broken light bulb. Vorthok technicians ran around in panic, not trying to understand what was wrong. Their quantum computers were reporting that systems were failing all across the planet. But the computers could not explain why. "The beautiful thing about living technology," Jinwoo whispered to himself with a cold smile, "is that it can catch diseases." All across 17 different Vorthok worlds, similar accidents were happening at the same time. Power grids shut down without warning. Transportation systems stopped working. Planetary defense shields went offline for what the computers called routine maintenance, but never came back online. The Vorthok leadership thought these were just unlucky coincidences. They believed their old infrastructure was finally starting to wear out after centuries of use. They never suspected that these failures were carefully planned attacks. Captain Lip Sung-min coordinated the entire operation from his stealth ship called the Revenant. The ship was nearly invisible to alien sensors. It drifted through Vorthok space like a ghost, sending coded messages to human teams, hidden on dozens of worlds. The humans who carried out these attacks were the children of the void, people born and raised in the emptiness between stars. They had learned to move without being seen, to survive in places where normal people would die, to be patient and wait for the perfect moment to strike. For 50 years, these void-born humans had studied Vorthok technology. They had learned how the biomachines worked better than the aliens who built them. They had discovered that living technology had the same weakness as all living things. It could be infected with diseases, but these were not natural diseases. Human scientists had spent decades creating special viruses and bacteria that would attack only Vorthok biomachines. The germs were designed to spread through the living systems like a plague, causing them to malfunction in ways that looked like normal breakdowns. On Nexus Prime, the air-making machines continued to produce poison gas. Vorthok colonists were dying by the thousands. Their own technology was killing them, and they did not understand why. On Kara's the 7th, the power reactor's containment field finally collapsed completely. The explosion that followed could be seen from orbit. Half the planets. Mining operations were destroyed in seconds. Similar catastrophes were happening on world after world. The Vorthok Empire, which had seemed so strong and permanent, was starting to fall apart from within. Status report, Songman requested from his hidden command ship. 17 worlds have experienced major system failures, reported one of his officers. The Vorthok still think these are accidents. They have no idea we are behind it. Good, Sungmen replied. They made us learn to survive in the darkness between stars. They forced us to become invisible, to live in places where nothing else could survive. Now we will teach them what the darkness can do. The void-born humans moved through Vorthok space like deadly shadows. They struck without warning and disappeared before anyone could find them. They turned the aliens' own technology against them, using the biomachine's living nature as a weapon. The Vorthok had thought they were the perfect predators. They had believed that wiping out humanity would make the galaxy safe for their ordered civilization. But they had made a terrible mistake. They had created an enemy that was invisible, patient, absolutely ruthless. The children of the void were no longer just surviving. They were hunting, and their prey had no idea that death was already inside their own machines. Waiting to strike, the Vorthok High Command finally realized what was really happening when their homeworld's protective shield suddenly collapsed. It was supposed to be just a routine check of the system. Instead, the massive energy barrier that had protected their capital planet for centuries simply shut down and would not turn back on. Admiral Sarah stared at the huge display screen. In the command center, red dots showed system failures on 47 different worlds. The pattern was too organized to be accidents. This was an attack. This cannot be real, Supreme Leader Karvash said angrily. His voice made a growling sound deep in his throat. The mechanical parts attached to his body were clicking and whirring nervously. We killed all the humans decades ago. We watched their planets burn with our own eyes. Maybe we did not kill all of them, Vexthera whispered. She felt cold fear running through her alien body like ice water. Her worst fears came true when the first human ship in 50 years appeared right above the Vorthok capital planet. The ship came out of hyperspace without any warning, dropping into normal space like a predator pouncing on its prey. The vessel looked nothing like the old human ships from 50 years ago. It was sleek and smooth, with curves that seemed almost alive. It was clearly built using stolen Vorthok technology, but it had been changed and improved in ways the aliens had never imagined. Commando Beak. Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of his ship, which was called the Orphans' Revenge. His brain had been enhanced with computer interfaces that let him process battle information faster than any normal human could think. Behind him, his crew of void-born humans worked with perfect coordination, their minds linked together through bioneural connections. All stations are ready for battle, announced Tactical Officer M. Sora. Her fingers moved across living controls that glowed with soft blue light. The controls were made from captured Vorthok biotechnology, but they had been redesigned to respond only to human touch. The battle that started next was unlike anything anyone in the galaxy had ever seen before. The humans did not fight like the scared refugees that the Vorthok remembered from 50 years ago. They fought with the cold, calculated precision of survivors who had spent decades planning for exactly this moment. Every weakness in Vorthok technology had been studied and recorded. Every battle tactic the aliens used had been analyzed and countered. The void-born humans had watched their enemies for half a century, learning everything about how they fought. When the Vorthok ships tried their traditional attack, ramming their enemies at full speed like berserkers, they found only empty space. The human ships had already moved to new positions, guided by computer programs that had been studying Vorthok battle patterns for decades. How are they doing this? Vexthera gasped as another massive Vorthok dreadnought exploded under precise human weapons fire. It is like they can read our minds and know what we will do before we do it. No, Hyun-woo said quietly from his ship's bridge, though the alien admiral could not hear him across the emptiness of space. We are not reading your minds. We are reading your souls, and we have found them lacking. The human ships moved through the battle like deadly dancers. They were smaller than the massive Vorthok dreadnoughts, but they were faster and smarter. Where the alien ships relied on brute force and thick armor, the human vessels used speed and intelligence. Every shot the humans fired hit its target. Every maneuver they made was perfectly timed. It was as if they could see the future and knew exactly where the Vorthok ships would be. In reality, it was even simpler than that. The Voidborn humans had spent their entire lives studying their enemies. They had captured pieces of Vorthok technology and reverse engineered it. They had listened to alien communications and learned their language. They had watched thousands of battle recordings and analyzed every tactic. The Vorthok had thought they were the perfect predators. They had believed that their size and strength made them unbeatable, but they had never fought an enemy that knew them better than they knew themselves. All Vorthok ships, retreat immediately. Vexera ordered as her fleet began to fall apart around her. Fall back to the secondary defense line. What? But there was no secondary defense line. The humans had already infected the biomechanical systems on dozens of worlds. The Vorthok Empire was collapsing from within, and now it was being attacked from. Without this is impossible, Karvash repeated, but his voice was quieter now. The confidence was gone. How did they survive? How did they become so strong? The answer was simple, though the Vorthok would never understand it. They had tried to make humanity extinct, but they had only made humanity stronger. The survivors had been forged in the cold darkness between stars, shaped by loss and hardened by hate. The orphans of humanity had returned home, and they had come to collect a debt that had been growing interest for 53 years. The reckoning had finally begun. The war did not end with one big final battle. Instead, the mighty Vorthok Empire slowly fell apart like a house made of cards. The last Vorthok stronghold gave up when their own living machines turned against them. The biosystems that had served them for thousands of years were now infected with human-made germs that made their technology attack its own creators. Admiral Zheng Suyang walked through the broken remains of the Vorthok High Command building. Glass and metal were scattered everywhere. Smoke rose from damaged computers. The once proud center of alien power was now just ruins. In the middle of the destruction, the last supreme leader knelt on the floor in defeat. Karvash had once been the most powerful being in the galaxy. He was dying slowly. Mechanical parts attached to his body were poisoned by the very air he was breathing. His own bioenhancements were killing him from the inside. "You were supposed to be dead," he said weakly, his voice barely a whisper. "We destroyed all your worlds. We killed all your people. You were supposed to be extinct." "Being extinct is just another place to live," Suyang replied coldly. "You taught us that when you tried to make us orphans. Now we have made you extinct instead." The Supreme Leader's eyes closed for the last time. The empire that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years was finally dead. But as the humans realized how complete their victory was, they faced a difficult choice. They now had the power to rule the entire galaxy. They could do to other species what the Vorthok had tried to do to them. Admiral Li Yujin, the daughter of Commander Li Jina, who had died 50 years ago, spoke to all the human fleets scattered across the galaxy. Her voice was broadcast to every human ship, every hidden base, every void-born survivor. "We have one," she said. "We have the power to rule this galaxy the same way the Vorthok did. We could make every other species bow down to us. We could make them follow our rules. We could make sure that no one ever threatens humanity again. By making sure no one is strong enough to threaten us." She paused and looked out at the stars. These same stars had been humanity's home for 50 years when they had nowhere else to go. The cold emptiness of space had been their refuge and their teacher. "But if we do that, we would become exactly like them," she continued. "Instead, we will be something new. We will be shepherds who protect instead of predators who hunt. Galaxy will remember what happens to those who try to make us extinct, but they will also see what we choose to become." The vote was taken across all human fleets and hidden bases. Every survivor, every void-born human, every person who had lived through the long years of hiding and planning had their say. The result was the same everywhere. Humanity would not become the new tyrants of the galaxy. They would be its guardians. The decision was not made from weakness. The humans had proven they could be utterly ruthless when necessary. They had wiped out an entire species that had threatened them. They chose to be better than their enemies. The human fleets began to spread out across the galaxy, but not as conquerors. They came as protectors, as helpers, as builders. They began the long work of healing the damage that centuries of Orthoc rule had caused. On the flagship called New Dawn, Dr. Shin Taeyeon stood at the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Her young daughter floated beside her in the low gravity, born in the void, but destined to live in a time of peace. They made us orphans, Taeyeon whispered to her child. But orphans learn to take care of each other, and now we will take care of everyone. The little girl looked up at her mother with curious eyes. What are orphans, Mama? Orphans are children who have lost their parents, Taeyeon explained gently. When the bad aliens destroyed our home, all of humanity became orphans. We had to learn to survive on our own, to take care of each other, to be strong even when we were scared. But we are not orphans anymore, the child asked. Taeyeon smiled and held her daughter close. No, sweetheart. We are not orphans anymore. We are a family again. And we will make sure that no other children have to become orphans like we did. Across the galaxy, human ships began their new mission. They would not rule through fear like the Vorthok had. They would lead by example. They would show other species that strength could be used to protect instead of destroy. The children of the void had learned the hardest lesson of all, that the strongest choice is often the choice to be kind, at the power to dominate the galaxy, but they chose instead to heal it. The orphans had become shepherds, and the galaxy would be safer because of it.